Hello, and welcome to the Gen X Dad and his Gen Z Teens podcast. We're a program that takes a lighthearted look at generational differences about all sorts of topics. We explore everything from pop culture to history to relationships and to politics, but only at a very shallow level. We're not here to be controversial or be the authoritative voice on any topic. We're not social scientists or scientists of any matter for any sort for that matter. We're just here to talk about the things that we think are important and we like to have fun talking about. Today, our topic is going to be conspiracy theories. So, conspiracy theories are everywhere nowadays, and a large part of that is just because of the internet. However, conspiracy theories have been basically since I think probably two people figured out how to communicate with each other. There have been conspiracy theories. And so what we're going to talk about today, though, is the difference between really what ultimately non-internet versus internet. And so what I remember as far as conspiracy theories go growing up, there wasn't really that much, and to be honest, it was easy to not take them seriously. So without any further ado, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I do not believe in really any conspiracies. And I think for the most part, they are easily debunked if you just think about it for a few minutes. That said, what I remember, the big conspiracies that you might have heard about in the 80s, the JFK assassination. They actually made a movie about it, which the movie was kind of convincing. Kevin Costner was in it, and it was interesting to hear that take of it. It was very interesting to me also because there was a Louisiana connection. I'm from Louisiana. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think if you really, really dig and study it, Lee Harvey Oswald was the only shooter. It's unfortunate that he was subsequently assassinated fairly quickly. And I think that's helped keep things alive. But, I think he was alone. And like I said, it was pretty easy back then that if anybody really was a true believer in it, they were pretty much a party of one. And so that's how most conspiracy theorists, they didn't have much of a community within their community for them to continue feeding on that. The other big conspiracy would obviously be the Roswell alien. Now that one I think has been fully debunked. The Air Force has even come out and said that they floated stories about things because they didn't want the high altitude balloon test they were doing because they were trying to get radioactive samples out of the air because of the Russian nuclear testing. So they were covering it up sort of that way. The other thing is, I just can't get around to the fact to believe that aliens will travel millions and millions of gazillions of miles and they're going to crash in Roswell and somebody's not going to come and pick them up. I don't know. I just can't wrap my brain around that whole bit. I don't know whether there's life out there or intelligent life out there in the universe. I'm pretty sure there is. But man, we're just a speck of dust, and so I just don't buy into the Roswell conspiracy. God, I keep saying the wrong thing. And then the last one would be that did they fake the moon landings? That was more of a joke, I think, than anything taken seriously. And again, I think a big part of why conspiracies were just not such a big deal when I was growing up was just because there was nothing to feed onto it. People, if they really believed in it, were isolated. But then, boom, here comes the internet, and the internet changes everything. And so now you've got whole communities, and with conspiracies, I mean, it's just everything's exploded. There's flat earthers, which I, again, have a hard time wrapping my brain around. There were a guy who basically organized I don't know if hundreds of people showed up, but certainly dozens of people in the middle of the Nevada desert to go try and see an alien out in, the proverbial Area 51. That is just nonsense, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Chemtrails, airplanes that leave contrails in the air. And I actually ran into a lady who worked for the city and at a baseball tournament, and she mentioned it, and I perked my ears up because I'm a pilot. And she said that they get calls like on a weekly basis about people asking about chemtrails, and just absurd. That one's really lame. So again, the way that the internet has allowed all of these people to find each other, and then therefore there is strength in community, I think there's just been an explosion of conspiracy theories. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to my older teen, and just what are your thoughts on conspiracy theories out there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the internet has definitely had a huge impact on the amount of conspiracy theories out there. I think nowadays, you would just be talking to somebody, and then all of a sudden, depending on, what you're talking about, they'll just kind of mention it, and you'd be like, oh, okay, you believe that. And it's definitely gotten a lot more common. And I mean, it's even like, it's not just adults, it's people, it's kids, it's teenagers and stuff too that believe this. And a lot of it's kind of like government related, like, the government's doing this, the government's doing that, stuff like that. It's pretty common. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really gotten a lot more, and I think it's continuing to spread and become a bigger and bigger thing, especially since kind of the introduction of social media, which catapults it even further. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think every year it becomes bigger and bigger.
All right, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off what he said. Not only has the internet made conspiracy spread farther, it's also increased like the amount of diversity in what those conspiracy theories are. And also, it's a lot easier to just make up a conspiracy theory and put it on the internet. Like, it'll take like a couple minutes, and you just film yourself or just an AI voice talking over some background footage or AI pictures. And all you have to do is just put it on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, anything like that, and now there could be someone that actually believes it.
Which reminds, like Bigfoot, they've debunked that that was a fake photo of the Bigfoot. You got something to say? Here.
Yeah, I mean, and going off kind of what he was talking about, I mean, you'll be scrolling through, something like TikTok or Instagram Reels, and it's pretty common you'll get some sort of video, and a lot of times it's not like, like a traditional like conspiracy theory like you think about it, like, oh, like the earth is flat or the moon landing was fake or something like that. It's like, it's little things, and it's tough because usually like you'll kind of see it and be like, huh, well, that sounds pretty believable. But then you dig deeper and it's, completely made up. But what it is nowadays is, it's a bunch of these little things, and then slowly they kind of build up, and then it becomes some big whole, freaking massive conspiracy. But a lot of times, I mean, it's little like stupid things that no one really cares about. So, someone's making a video about it, just, spreading complete lies and conspiracy theories. But since it's not really a big thing, it gains traction and people just believe them. So, yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot.
Okay, yeah, all good words. And so let's start tackling some of these, because some of these are just a pet peeve of mine. So let's start first off with aliens in Area 51, okay? So a couple years ago, the guy on the internet was like, hey, let's go. They can't stop us all. We'll go find these aliens. And it took off to the point that we have friends that came up to me. I mean, these are adult people, and we're like, man, are they really going to get over and be able to see the aliens? And I'm looking at it. At first I thought it was a joke, and then they were like all straight face, and I'm like, no, there's nothing there. Stop. And here's why. So first off, again, forget about the fact that are aliens really going to travel millions of light years? Can they even find us? That goes without saying. But again, I was in the military. I was in the Air Force. I had a security clearance. I have never been in any part of Area 51. I've never had that, but I've been on plenty of military bases. And the place that they were going has existed for like 60, probably 70 years. Now think about that for a second, because again, this isn't Independence Day where there's people like live out there in complete isolation. There's probably been 50,000 people who have worked out there at any point along the way. Everything from whatever else goes on to janitors, secretaries, construction workers to build buildings, whatever else. And not to mention that it's a government facility, so it's got to be paid for. So Congress has to get involved. And if you think Congress can keep any secrets, man, you don't know your Congress very well. So all of that has to be paid. And it just doesn't make sense that out of tens of thousands of people who go up to work and work a job there, whatever that job is, and come back, that if there really was something crazy going on, somebody would say anything. The fact that there's only been I think one person just shows that dude's just looking for attention. And so that is just a ludicrous, crazy thing to think that we are so good at keeping some sort of secret like that when literally there would have been 50, 60, 70,000 people by now who have worked in there. And so it's just not believable. The second thing, as far as a pilot goes, chemtrails, come on, people, that's not a thing. When airplanes fly, there's hot air coming out of the exhaust of the engines. The air where the altitudes they're flying is incredibly cold. When you get hot air and cold air together, that just causes condensation. All right. And at certain levels, weather people can predict exactly where that happens. When I was flying in my F-16, we knew where the contrails were because you don't want to fly in that level of the atmosphere because people can see you from hundreds of miles away. It's a thing. Second thing, when F-16s and everything else can fly along and make contrails, there's certainly no room for big, giant bags or containers of chemicals. Not to mention World War II, you can look at actual combat footage of B-17s flying back in the 1940s that are carrying bombs to go bomb Germany or Japan, and they're making contrails. There's no such thing as chemtrails. So if you believe that, please stop. Okay? Anything to add on those two thoughts on that?
Not too much. For the alien one, it's always been there is a solid chance that there are some sort of alien life form somewhere. But my biggest thing for it is, space is freaking huge. So, you can look up pictures where it'll show, the Milky Way, and then, it'll show, a little ring of how far, basically any human light or signal or transmission has gone. And it's this tiny dot in comparison to the Milky Way. So, space is huge, and there's, no way that aliens could even know we're here or travel over here without some crazy technology. And at that point, they would just, do what Columbus did to the Native Americans and just freaking take our land and take our planet and run us over.
All right. I want to say one other thing about the aliens too is, they released all these videos of, they're not calling them UFOs, but whatever they're calling, unidentified flying something or other. And for starters, they have these military guys saw this thing. And that is so. First off, that was Navy guys. And second, they're using a targeting pod, which is basically, if you think about looking through a binocular, but the size of a soda straw. And everything that I see can be easily explained it's probably a bird flying by. It's so ridiculous. I'm glad no Air Force guys have been caught up in that. But just those things are easily explained.
Actually, when it comes to UFO stuff, there's a YouTube channel called Corridor Crew that does some great videos. They're a bunch of VFX artists, and they know how cameras work and all that, and they actually dive into a lot of this UFO footage, and they debunk it and go through like how either it was faked or what happened in the camera that caused it to make it look like there was a UFO or anything like that. So,
all right, let's move on to my next most frustrating conspiracy, and that's the flat earthers. That is just crazy with the flat earthers. There's just there's no way we're spending billions and billions of dollars to fake that the earth is round. That doesn't make any sense. It's easy. I mean, the ancient Greeks knew that the earth was round, and we have clearly through history been able to figure out the motions, Newton's law. I mean, it all makes sense versus some sort of mythical ice wall that we can't get over, and then the fact that we're being propelled up, but they can't explain why we're being propelled up. It's just silly. So please stop with the flat earth. We're not a flat earth. The earth is just, it's big relative to our particular size, and we don't really appreciate that because we get told how everything else is so big. Well, the earth is big itself too. What do you guys, is there anything that your friends or anybody talks about that you guys want to bring up before we go on? Okay. You don't hear as much, I think, the faking the moon landings. I think that's even a small group of the small group. Same thing, you don't hear too much about JFK conspiracies as much anymore. I think they've fully debunked a lot of that stuff. What do you got?
No, I mean, a lot of kind of like, I think your classic and like traditional conspiracy theories, like the stuff you think when you think of conspiracy theories, most of those have sort of kind of died out. The new kind of thing is, like I mentioned earlier, it's just kind of weird stuff. A lot of it's to do with the government, whatever. I mean, you could do anything. The government's doing this, the government's doing that. I mean, you could kind of use it for anything. So things have kind of changed. A lot of the classic, I think, like conspiracy theories aren't really as much of a big thing anymore.
Okay, well, fair enough. Maybe not the classic ones, but I do think conspiracy theory culture is way bigger now than it is. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, that was a good, thorough answer there. So that's tough. Again, conspiracy theories have existed throughout history. The internet has connected people, and then that we haven't even really touched on malicious conspiracies. Now that's certainly, politics is full of all of that. We haven't really touched on those stuff. We're using still just the classical conspiracies. But if anyone wants to put in the comments any conspiracy theory that they maybe believe in and want to make the case for it, you're certainly welcome to do that. Again, I am not a conspiracy theorist. There's very few things that I think can't be explained, and I don't think everyone's out to get me, out of some secret society or anything like that. And I've definitely, having seen our government operate to the extent that I have, I don't believe we're all knowing and all powerful. Not to say that shady stuff hasn't been tried or done in the past, but it's mostly not as sophisticated as what we believe with all these conspiracy theories, which ultimately just break down once you ask usually about 4 or 5 questions. So that's my take on it. I want to thank you guys for listening. Again, if there's anybody who wants to comment or make a case for their conspiracy theory that they believe, please go for it in the comments. We'll be respectful, even though I'm quite the skeptic. So thank you for listening. That's all we have today. This has been the Gen X Dad and his Gen Z teens. Take care, guys. Bye.